You think Korea belongs to you? Amara Blackwood's voice cut through the midnight air of Busan Harbor like a blade. She stood over Park Jang-seok, watching blood stream from his broken nose onto the concrete. What would you do if you'd spent 12 years building an empire, only to watch it threatened by one man's arrogance? She adjusted her coat. Italian wool, custom cut. The kind of armor a woman wears when she knows the night might try to swallow her whole. 2 hours earlier, she'd stepped off a cargo ship, expecting an ambush. Park Jang-seok controlled every smuggling route into Seoul, and she'd just rerouted 3 shipments through his territory without permission. Of course he'd sent men, 6 of them, armed and waiting in the shadows of the container yard. What they hadn't expected was that she'd intercepted his communications 3 days ago, that her right hand, Kwame, had positioned their team on the adjacent pier, that she'd walked into the trap knowing exactly how to spring it. Now Park knelt at her feet, and his men were drifting toward Gyeoje Island in a fishing boat they wouldn't remember boarding. "This is my territory," Park spat, blood bubbling on his lips. "You have no idea what you've started." Amara smiled. "I know exactly what I've started." Kwame materialized at her shoulder. "Perimeter's clear. Harbor Authority changes shift in 15 minutes. She nodded, but didn't take her eyes off the man before her. Park Jang-seok had ruled Seoul's underworld for a decade. Government contacts, police on payroll, a reputation that made customs officials look away. And she'd just humiliated him in his own harbor. He wouldn't forget. He'd come for her with everything he had. Good, let him come. She turned toward the main shipping container, $6 million in rare earth minerals bound for Singapore. When her phone buzzed, a news alert, she read it twice, and the triumph of the last hour drained away like water through a cracked bowl. Korean Ministry of Trade announces Operation Iron Gate. Unprecedented crackdown on smuggling networks. All ports under enhanced surveillance effective immediately. Behind her, Park laughed, wet and bloody. "You see, Commander Rhee is coming. He's never forgotten what you did to him in South Africa." Park's grin was crimson. "Every port, every route, every contact you've spent years building, gone. You're trapped, Black Queen." Amara's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice even. "I'm never trapped." But even as she said it, she was calculating. Operation Iron Gate would shut down her routes within months. The network she'd built from her father's ashes, the empire that had taken her from a grieving 16-year-old in Lagos to the most powerful woman in African underground trade, all of it was at risk. To survive in Seoul, she needed something she'd never needed before, a cover, a legitimate face, someone the Korean government would never suspect. She looked toward the glittering skyline beyond the harbor. Somewhere in that maze of glass and steel was a man named Kang Ji-hoon, CEO of the 5th largest shipping company in Asia. Clean on paper, gray underneath, perfect. She stepped over Park and walked toward the waiting car. "This isn't over," he called after her. Amara didn't look back. "No, it's just beginning." She came to Seoul with a plan and made an enemy before sunrise. But the man she's about to meet, he might be more dangerous than anyone she's faced. Stay with me. 3 days later, Amara stepped into the marble lobby of Kang Group Tower, 42 stories of glass and steel rising above Gangnam, charitable donations to children's hospitals, a CEO who attended state dinners and shook hands with ministers. She'd studied him until she could see his face with her eyes closed. Kang Ji-hoon, 32 years old, sharp jaw, unreadable gaze, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. A machine, she'd told herself. Machines are easy to manipulate. But when the elevator opened onto the executive floor, something shifted in her chest. A flutter she hadn't felt in years. The office was minimalist. Pale wood floors, a single orchid on the windowsill, and behind a desk that held nothing but a laptop and a glass of water, Ji-hoon watched her approach. He didn't stand. Ms. Blackwood. His voice was quiet, precise. Or should I say, the Black Queen? Her pulse jumped, but she kept her expression neutral. Of course he knew. A man like this would have investigated her the moment she requested the meeting. Mr. Kang. She took the chair across from him without waiting to be offered. You've done your homework. I do my homework on everyone. His dark eyes studied her like data to be analyzed. You run the Blackwood Syndicate, smuggling, underground finance, 3 continents, wanted for questioning in 4 countries, though charges never stick. I also fund renewable energy and women's education across West Africa. She crossed her legs, but I suppose that didn't make your file. Something flickered in his gaze. She couldn't tell if it was irritation or interest. Why are you here? To propose a partnership, your logistics network, my capital and international connections. Together we could open routes neither of us could access alone. Legitimate routes? Does it matter? His jaw tightened. It matters to the government. It matters to my board. It matters to me. There it is, she thought. The performance. She'd seen it before. Powerful men pretending they had principles until the price was right. Let me be direct, she said. Operation Iron Gate is coming. Every underground route into Seoul will collapse within 6 months. I intend to adapt. She paused. The question is whether you're smart enough to adapt with me. Silence stretched between them. The orchid trembled in the climate-controlled air. Then he spoke, colder than before. You didn't come to cooperate, Ms. Blackwood. You came to use my company as a shield, to make me complicit so that if you fall, I fall with you. She felt something unexpected, not anger, respect. You're smart, she said softly. Smart doesn't mean I'll agree. No. She rose, smoothing her coat. But smart means you won't refuse, not yet. The government is closing in, Mr. Kang. And legal or not, your company has secrets it can't afford exposed. She saw it, the slight tightening around his eyes. She'd struck something. 1 week, she continued. Consider my offer. Consider what happens if you refuse. She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. Ms. Blackwood. She turned. He'd risen from his desk, taller than she'd expected, broader in the shoulders. Power held close, like a concealed weapon. I don't respond to threats, he said. She smiled. Then let's call it a prediction. She left without looking back, but in the elevator, her heart raced faster than it should have. He's not a machine, she realized. He's a fortress. And fortresses, she thought, as the city spread below, are made to be conquered. What Amara couldn't see, what those unreadable eyes concealed, was that Kang Ji-hoon was already conquered. By grief, by guilt, by a wound that had never healed. Alone in his office, he watched her town car disappear into Gangnam traffic. His reflection stared back, the successful CEO, the untouchable strategist, the man who'd turned his family's trucking business into an empire. But beneath the discipline was devastation. Jun-ho, his younger brother, 23 when he died, bright and reckless and certain the world would reward his courage. Ji-hoon had warned him, stay away from the gray deals. Don't trust men who smile too easily. But Jun-ho wanted to prove himself, took a meeting alone, walked into an ambush meant for Ji-hoon. The funeral was on a Tuesday, rain on the temple roof, their mother's wail like breaking glass. Ji-hoon had made a vow that day, never again, never let anyone close enough to become a weapon against me. 5 years he'd kept it, built higher walls, calculated every risk, trusted no one. And now Amara Blackwood had walked through his door with her knowing smile, and she'd looked at him like she could see straight through to the wreckage. She's a threat, he told himself. Neutralize or refuse. Those are the only options. But even as he thought it, he knew it wasn't true. For the first time in 5 years, he'd met someone he couldn't predict. That frightened him more than any investigation ever could. 2 people with empires to protect, and wounds they've never let anyone see. If this story is drawing you in, take a moment to subscribe and join me for the rest of this journey. The Seoul International Trade Conference glittered with champagne and secrets. Amara moved through the crowd in a gown of deep burgundy, her locks pinned with gold. She smiled at ministers, charmed investors, played the sophisticated African businesswoman so perfectly that even Kwame, watching from the perimeter, seemed convinced. But her attention kept drifting to one figure. Ji-hoon stood near the bar with sparkling water. Never alcohol, she'd noticed, listening to a gray-haired official with polite attention. Charcoal suit, expression of carved stone. 1 week, she thought. I gave him 1 week and nothing. She should have been irritated. Instead, she was intrigued. The music shifted, and guests drifted toward the main hall for the keynote. Amara was about to follow when a voice silenced the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please." She turned. A man had taken the stage, late 40s, military posture, a face like granite. He wore the uniform of a high-ranking official. Commander Rhee. She knew that name. 3 years ago in Cape Town, she dismantled one of his operations. A sting meant to catch her moving weapons through the port. He'd lost 6 months of work, lost face with his superiors. He'd never forgiven her. "I am here," Rhee announced, "to inform you of a critical government initiative." Behind him, a screen lit up. Maps, shipping routes, surveillance photos. Operation Iron Gate is the most comprehensive anti-smuggling campaign in Korean history. Beginning next month, all ports and borders will face enhanced inspection. All international financial transactions will be monitored, and all individuals suspected of illegal activity will be investigated with the full force of Korean law. The room went silent. Amara felt tension ripple through the crowd. Legitimate business people suddenly worried about their own quiet arrangements. "We will not tolerate criminal networks on Korean soil," Rhee said, and his eyes swept the room like searchlights. "We will find them, we will expose them, and we will destroy them." His gaze found Amara. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough. "He knows I'm here. He's been waiting." Scattered applause followed. Amara didn't clap. She was already calculating how to move shipments, protect her people, survive what was coming. She needed that partnership. She needed it now. She slipped into a side corridor, heading for the private lounges. She'd find Ji-hoon, force the conversation he'd been avoiding. Alarms erupted. Red lights, sirens, a voice over speakers. Security protocol activated. All guests remain in designated areas. She tried the door ahead, locked. Security personnel flooded the corridor behind her. Then a hand closed on her arm. She spun, ready to strike, and faced Kang Ji-hoon. "Come with me," he said. "Now." She should have demanded an explanation, but something in his voice, urgency stripped of control, made her follow. He pulled her through a service entrance, downstairs, into a small room lined with monitors. A security hub, empty. Ji-hoon locked the door behind them. "What is this?" Amara demanded. "The sweep is Ree's. He's searching for you." "Then why help me?" In the blue glow of screens, something shifted in his expression. A fracture in the stone. "Because if you're arrested at a conference where I'm keynote sponsor, my company gets dragged into your investigation. My name in every headline. Everything I've built, destroyed." Amara laughed, short and sharp. "So this is self-preservation." "Yes." "How romantic." "I don't do romance, Ms. Blackwood. I do survival." The sirens wailed. Above them, teams searched room by room. She looked at this man who'd just risked his reputation to hide her, and she understood something. He's afraid, not of me, of losing control. "You need me," she said quietly. "I need this resolved." "No, you need me." She stepped closer. "Ree isn't just coming for me. He's coming for everyone who's ever bent a rule, made a great deal, prioritized profit over paperwork. That includes you." "I have nothing to hide." "Everyone has something to hide." She held his gaze. "Work with me, and we protect each other. Turn me away, and you stand alone when the investigation comes." Silence. Monitors flickered around them. Finally, he spoke. "If we do this, there are conditions. No contact with my staff without approval. No operations on Korean soil without my knowledge. And if you betray me," his voice dropped, "I personally deliver you to Ree." Amara smiled. "Fair enough, my conditions. No decisions about my business without my input. No sharing intelligence with government contacts. And if you try to make me a scapegoat," she leaned closer, "I'll bring your empire down around your ears. We'll be cellmates." Neither moved. Then Ji-hoon extended his hand. "Partners," he said, "for now." She took it. His grip was firm, his palm warm. "Partners, but let's keep our distance." Above them, sirens stopped. The sweep was over. As they slipped back into the glittering conference, Amara knew something had shifted. She'd come looking for a tool, a cover, a means to an end. She hadn't expected him to challenge her, and she hadn't expected, her pulse still racing, from the moment he'd taken her hand. That night, Ji-hoon made a call he hadn't made in months. Professor Song Yoon-kyung answered on the third ring. She'd been his mentor during business school abroad, an economist who'd left academia to advise governments on matters too sensitive for public record. "Ji-hoon, it's late. I need your perspective." He told her about Amara, the partnership, Iron Gate closing in. The professor listened, then said something that stopped him cold. "You're not asking about business, are you? You're asking about her." "I don't know what you mean." "You've worked with criminals before, never called me about them." Pause. "What makes this one different?" He didn't answer. Outside, Seoul glittered like scattered diamonds. All those lives he'd spent years learning to manage. But in that security room with Amara, he hadn't felt in control at all. "Be careful," the professor said. A woman like that isn't a variable you can calculate. She's a force. If you're not careful, she'll change everything you think you know about yourself. And if I want to be changed? Silence. Then I hope you're ready, she said quietly. Because once you let someone in, you can't go back to who you were before. She hung up. Ji-hoon set down the phone and looked at the city. You can't go back to who you were before. Maybe that was exactly what he needed. In her hotel suite, Amara stood at the window, watching neon lights blur in the rain. Kwame spoke from behind her. You should have told me where you were. I had people searching. I was fine. You were alone with him. Locked room, government sweep. His voice hardened. That's not fine, that's reckless. She turned to face him, this man who'd protected her since she was 18, who'd never questioned her orders, who would die for her. Kwame, I know what I'm doing. Do you? He met her eyes and she saw something rare there, fear. The woman I know doesn't get cornered, doesn't rely on men she doesn't trust. Then what? He was quiet. Doesn't look at a man the way you looked at him, he finally said. Amara turned back to the window. Rain streaked the glass like tears. He's a business arrangement, she said. Nothing more. But even as the words left her mouth, she felt the ghost of his hand in hers. Partners, for now. And Amara Blackwood, who'd never let anyone close, who'd built her empire on the principle that trust was weakness. She was beginning to wonder if the walls she'd built were as strong as she'd believed. The first planning session took place in a Kang Group building that didn't appear on any corporate website. Amara arrived with Kwame and a folder of shipping routes. Ji-hoon was already there, seated at a long table with his Kyo, Han Mi-ra. Mi-ra was everything the file had promised. Early 30s, sharp-featured, dressed in armor-perfect tailoring. She looked at Amara the way a general assesses an enemy, cataloging weaknesses, calculating threats. She doesn't like me, Amara thought. Good. Means she's paying attention. For 2 hours they worked. Amara traced routes, identified choke points where Ree's teams would watch. Ji-hoon countered with logistics data, customs protocols, shipping schedules, relationships with port officials built over years. They argued constantly. The Incheon route is too exposed, Ji-hoon said, tapping the map. Harbor Authority doubled inspections. Then we use Mokpo. I have contacts. Mokpo is Park Jang-seok's territory. You'll start a war. Park is a cockroach. I've handled worse. Handled worse? Mira's voice cut like ice. You mean Johannesburg, where competitors vanished and were never found? Amara met her stare. I mean exactly what I said. Tension coiled through the room. Kwame stood against the wall, hand near his hip, watching Ji-hoon's every move. But even as they clashed, Amara noticed things. The way Ji-hoon's mind worked, methodical, relentless, seeing angles she'd missed. The way he never raised his voice, even when frustrated. The way he studied the maps with something like reverence. He's not just intelligent, she realized. He has principles. In his cold, calculating way. It should have made him easier to manipulate. Instead, it made her want to understand him. Near midnight, they reached agreement, a trial shipment through a secondary port using Kang's legal cover and Amara's underground contacts. One shipment, Ji-hoon said. If it succeeds, we continue. If it fails, this ends and you leave Korea. Permanently. It won't fail. If it fails, he repeated, those are the terms. She was almost to the door when Mira spoke. Miss Blackwood. Amara turned. Mira hadn't moved. Her eyes glittered like broken glass. I've worked with Mr. Kang for 7 years. I've watched people try to use him, manipulate him, destroy him. They all failed. Pause. You will too, Amara smiled. Warning or wish? Fact. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Then Amara left, Kwame falling into step beside her. In the elevator, he spoke quietly. The COO is a problem. The COO is jealous. Jealous people make mistakes. Mistakes that get us killed. Amara watched floor numbers descend. Then we'll be careful. But she wasn't thinking about Mira. She was thinking about the way Ji-hoon looked at her across the table. Not with trust, not with warmth, but with something that might have been the beginning of respect. He sees me, she thought. Not the Black Queen, not the threat, me. Dangerous, that feeling. Dangerous and unfamiliar. She was here for business, survival, empire. Not for a man who kept his heart under lock and key. In his empty office, Ji-hoon stared at the map they'd marked together. He'd worked with criminals before, made arrangements. It was part of business in the gray spaces of international trade. But Amara wasn't like anyone he'd worked with. Brilliant, he couldn't deny it. She saw patterns in chaos, opportunities in obstacles. Her mind moved like water, finding cracks in stone. And dangerous, not just because of her reputation, but because of how she looked at him. Like she was waiting for him to slip. Like she wanted to see what was underneath. No one gets underneath, he told himself, but he could still feel her hand in his. Still hear her voice. You need me. He didn't need anyone. He'd learned that lesson at his brother's grave. His phone buzzed. A message from Mira. She's going to betray you. Let me handle her. He stared at the screen. Mira had been with him 7 years. Through every crisis, every triumph, she knew him better than anyone. But lately he'd seen something in her eyes when she looked at him. Something beyond professional loyalty. He typed, "No, I handle her myself." He set down the phone. He was Kang Ji-hoon. He didn't make mistakes. But Amara Blackwood might be a mistake he was already making. 3 blocks away, in a surveillance van, Agent K reviewed footage her hidden camera had captured. The Black Queen and the CEO. The security room. The handshake. She uploaded the file and typed her report. Partnership confirmed. Recommend continued surveillance. They don't trust each other yet, but they're getting closer. She didn't know her transmission would be intercepted. She didn't know Park Jang-seok had eyes everywhere. And she didn't know the information she'd gathered was about to become a weapon. The Skybar perched 63 floors above the Han River. Amara arrived first, taking a table where the city spread below like a living circuit board. She'd chosen neutral ground, public enough to prevent incidents, private enough for real conversation. Ji-hoon appeared at exactly 9 o'clock, punctual as always. He sat across from her, eyes sweeping the room, checking exits, noting faces, always calculating. The shipment cleared Mokpo this morning, Amara said. Your containers, my cargo, no inspections. I saw the report. And, he paused, you were right. The route works. She lifted her wine glass. Was that painful to admit? Slightly, she almost laughed. Wind pressed against the windows. City lights trembled below. Can I ask you something? She said. You can ask. Why did you help me at the conference? The real reason. His jaw tightened. To protect my company. That's the strategic reason. I'm asking about the other one. There is no other one. There's always another one. She set down her glass. I've been reading people since I was 16. When you pulled me into that room, you weren't just protecting your company. You were worried about me. Silence stretched. The river wound through Seoul like a dark ribbon. I don't worry about people, he finally said. I worry about variables, risks. Which one am I? He didn't answer, but something cracked in his expression. A fracture so small she might have imagined it. No one has refused me in 8 years, she said quietly. They fear me or want something from me, but they never just say no, until you. Is that why you're here? Because I'm a challenge? Maybe. She studied him, past the expensive suit and perfect posture to the man underneath. Or maybe because you're the first person in a long time who's treated me like an equal. Not a queen to fear, not a tool, just a person. His hands rested on the table, perfectly still. But she saw tension in his shoulders, a man at the edge of a precipice. I'm not good at this, he said. At what? He stopped, started again. I had a brother, Junho, killed 5 years ago because of a deal I should have handled myself, because I trusted someone I shouldn't have. Her chest tightened. She hadn't expected him to offer this piece of himself unguarded. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. I don't talk about him, ever. I don't know why I'm... He shook his head. The point is, I learned something. Trust is liability. Caring about people is liability. The only way to survive is distance. Is that what you're doing with me? Keeping distance? He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something besides calculation, something like longing. I'm trying, he said. Wind howled against glass. Lights blurred below. Amara reached across the table and rested her fingers on his hand. Just a touch, just a moment. Maybe, she said softly, you should stop trying. He looked at her hand on his. He didn't pull away. And Amara realized, with a feeling like falling, that she wasn't playing a game anymore. She was in danger of something far worse than Ree or Park, or any enemy she'd faced. She was in danger of actually feeling something. They left separately as they'd arrived, but something had changed. A door opened, a wall beginning to crumble. Neither knew that across the city, the next morning, Han-Mi-Ra would make a decision that would nearly destroy them both. Mira made her choice at dawn. 7 years she'd worked for Ji-hoon, watched him cold and calculating, exactly what a CEO needed. Built her career around him, her loyalty, her future. Now she was watching him soften, watching him look at Amara Blackwood with something that wasn't calculation at all. He's losing focus, she told herself, compromising the company. So when Commander Ree's office requested a routine interview about Kang Logistics International Partners, she agreed. She told herself she was protecting Ji-hoon, protecting the company. She told herself jealousy had nothing to do with it. In that interview, demonstrating how thoroughly she monitored all business dealings, she mentioned the new route through Mokpo, the container timing, the schedule. She didn't give Amara's name, but she gave enough, and Commander Ree smiled, the smile of a man who'd found exactly what he needed. That same afternoon, in her Itaiwan safe house, Amara stood with Kwame over spread intelligence, manifests, personnel files, diagrams of Ree's investigation team. Second shipment is ready, Kwame said. But we need to accelerate. My sources say Ree is getting closer. How close? Close enough to pull financial records, bank accounts, wire transfers. His voice tightened. If he finds the connection to Kang Logistics, He won't. Amara. He won't. Ji-hoon's people buried the paperwork deep. Kwame's expression said what his voice didn't. And if there's a leak inside? She pushed the thought aside. No room for doubt now. We move next week, she said. Same route, same protocol? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message, and her blood turned to ice. A photograph, grainy but clear. Ji-hoon in Commander Ri's office, shaking hands. Timestamp that morning. She stared at the image, and something inside her cracked. He went to Ri. He's been playing me this whole time. Amara. Kwame was at her shoulder, reading the screen. His voice went hard. I warned you. I know. We move, now. Get out of Seoul before he gives them everything. I know, but she didn't move. She stared at the photograph. Ji-hoon's profile, the handshake, the proof of everything she'd feared. Distance, he'd told her at the Sky Bar. The only way to survive is distance. She'd thought he was talking about himself, but he'd been warning her. Her phone buzzed, a call this time. Ji-hoon's name. Kwame grabbed for it. Don't answer, it's a trap. She was already pressing the button. Amara. His voice was urgent, stripped of control. Where are you? I need to see you. Why? So you can deliver me yourself? Her voice was ice. I saw the photograph. I know you met with Ri. Pause. Then, that photograph was sent by Park Jang-seok. He's trying to turn us against each other. Convenient. It's the truth. Ri summoned me. I had no choice. But I gave him nothing. I swear. You swear? She laughed, bitter. A week ago you said you'd deliver me to Ri if I betrayed you. Why should I believe you wouldn't do the same? Because things have changed. Because because what? Silence. Meet me, he said finally. 1 hour, Myeongdong intersection. If you don't believe me after that, I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Her hand tightened on the phone. Every instinct screamed to refuse. Run. Treat him like the threat he was. But there was something in his voice, a rawness she'd never heard. A man who'd run out of calculations. 1 hour, she said. If it's a trap, Kwame will kill you. I know. She hung up. Kwame was already checking his weapon. This is a mistake. Probably. Then why? She looked at the photograph one more time. The handshake. The evidence. But she kept thinking about his hand in hers at the Sky Bar. The way he'd said her name. Because I need to know, she said quietly. One way or another. I need to know what he really is. Kwame shook his head. But he followed. Because that was what he'd always done. Even when he knew she was walking into fire. Across the city, Park Jang-seok watched the tracker on his phone. The plan was working. The photograph had driven a wedge between them, just as he'd intended. Now they'd destroy each other, and when the dust settled, he'd reclaim his territory. But the game wasn't over. He made a call. They're meeting at Myeongdong. Intercept them. Bring me the woman alive. He poured himself a drink. The Black Queen, he thought. Let's see how powerful you are when you're alone. Rain came to Seoul like a judgment. It swept through Myeongdong in sheets, turning neon signs to smears of color, driving crowds indoors. Amara stood at the intersection, coat soaked through, water streaming down her face. Kwame waited a block away, hidden in a doorway with clear sight lines. If anything went wrong, he'd be there in seconds. But seconds might not be enough. The intersection was nearly empty. A few umbrellas hurrying past, taxis splashing through puddles. the endless percussion of rain on pavement. Then she saw him. Ji-hoon emerged from a side street, no umbrella, suit darkening with water. He walked toward her with the deliberate pace of someone approaching something that might not let him survive. They faced each other in the downpour. The city roared around them. "You came," he said. "I came to hear you lie to my face." "I'm not lying." He stepped closer, rain running down his jaw. "Park sent that photograph. He's been watching us for weeks, looking for a way to break us apart." "And the meeting with Ree?" "Real. He summoned me, threatened to freeze my assets if I didn't cooperate." His voice was raw. "But I gave him nothing, Amara. I sat in that office 2 hours and told him I had no knowledge of illegal activity, that I'd never met you outside legitimate contexts. He believed you? No, he knows I'm lying, knows I'm protecting you." His eyes blazed. "And he'll come for me because of it. Tear my company apart, destroy everything I've built, and I don't care. Do you understand? I don't care anymore." She stared at him. Rain was cold on her skin, but something in her chest felt warm. "Why?" "Because," he stopped, hands clenched at his sides. "Because you were right. At the Sky Bar, you said I was trying to keep you at distance, and I should stop. And I've tried to stop, but I don't know how. I don't know how to let someone in without what? Without losing them." His voice broke. "Everyone I've cared about, I've lost. My brother, my mother, who won't speak to me since the funeral. I won't." He turned away. She saw his shoulders shake. Amara had spent 12 years building power on strength, never showing weakness, making sure no one could see her bleed. But looking at him, this man who had everything and nothing, who'd built walls even higher than hers, she understood something. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the only way to let someone in. She stepped forward and took his hand. "Ji-hoon." He turned back. Rain streamed down his face, and in his eyes she saw everything he'd hidden. The grief, the fear, the desperate, fragile hope. "I believe you," she said. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. His hand tightened on hers. He pulled her close. And they stood there in the rain, holding each other. Two people who'd forgotten what it meant to trust. For a moment, only that existed. His warmth, the sound of rain, the feeling that maybe she wasn't alone anymore. Then the black van came around the corner. Doors flew open. Men poured out. Flash of weapons in street light. She had time to shout, "Kwame!" before a hand wrenched her backward. She fought. Of course she fought. Broke one man's nose with her elbow, drove her knee into another's stomach, twisted free for half a second. But there were too many. 6, 8. She couldn't count. They grabbed her arms, her legs, forced her toward the van. Ji-hoon. He was fighting too, throwing punches, taking them, staggering against a lamppost. But they weren't trying to take him. They were trying to separate them, and succeeding. The last thing she saw before they shoved her into the van was his face, bloody, desperate, reaching for her. Amara. The doors slammed. Darkness. Ji-hoon stood in the rain, blood streaming from his lip, staring at where the van had vanished. She was gone. The woman he'd spent weeks holding at arm's length. The woman who'd seen through every defense. The woman say it, something demanded. Say what she is. The woman he loved. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking. He had resources, contacts, security teams that could mobilize in minutes. But he knew where Park would take her. The man had bragged about his Incheon warehouse for months, a fortress for his most private business. And if Ji-hoon sent his team, Park would kill her before they breached the door. The only way was alone. Walk into that warehouse without backup, without protection, without any of the calculations that had kept him alive. It's suicide, the old Ji-hoon whispered. But the new Ji-hoon, the one who'd held her in the rain, who'd felt her choose to believe him. That Ji-hoon was already running. He stopped once, made a single call. Professor Song answered on the second ring. Ji-hoon, it's the middle of the night. I need to know I'm not insane. What's happened? She's been taken. Park Jong-seok. I'm going after her. Silence. Alone? If I send my team, he'll kill her before they get inside. Quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard. Do you remember what I told you after Junho died? That you had to stop blaming yourself? Yes. I was wrong. Pause. You needed to blame yourself so you could learn, so you could become someone who'd never make that mistake again. Her voice cracked. You're not the same man, Ji-hoon. You're stronger, braver. And if you love her, really love her, go get her. And don't you dare die. He closed his eyes. Thank you. Ji-hoon, if you love a queen, remember, she doesn't need you to give her a castle. She needs you to stand beside her when the castle falls. She hung up. Ji-hoon put the car in drive and headed for Incheon. Kwame stepped from the doorway, weapon drawn, face like carved stone. He'd seen everything. The van, the CEO standing like a man who'd lost it all. His phone rang, unknown number. Mr. Mensah, Ji-hoon's voice was calm. I know where they're taking her. I'm going to get her back. Alone? Unless you want to come. Kwame was quiet. He'd spent years distrusting men like Kang Ji-hoon, polished, privileged, using people as pawns. But he'd seen how Ji-hoon looked at her, how she looked back. He'd seen what she wouldn't admit. This man wasn't a pawn. He was the real thing. Where? Kwame asked. Ji-hoon gave the address. I'll meet you there, Kwame said. And Mr. Kang, if she dies because of you, I'll make sure you follow. I know. Kwame hung up and started running. Because Amara wasn't just his boss, she was his family. And he wasn't going to let her die alone. The moment everything breaks, the moment you discover what someone will risk for you. Stay with me. What happens next will change everything. The Incheon warehouse sat at the waterfront edge, shrouded in fog and rust. Ji-hoon left his car a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot through shadows. The building loomed, concrete and steel, loading bays sealed, a single light burning in a high window. 4 guards at the perimeter, more inside. This was insane. He knew it. No combat training, no weapons experience. Nothing but desperate certainty that if he didn't try, he'd never forgive himself. Junho died because I wasn't there, he thought. Not again. A shadow materialized beside him. Kwame. The other man studied the warehouse, calculating entry points. 4 outside, Kwame said quietly. 8 inside, probably. Park travels with a full team. Can you get us in? I can get us in. Getting out is another matter. He finally looked at Ji-hoon. You understand what you're walking into? Yes. You're not a fighter, not trained. You'll be a liability. I know. Then why? Ji-hoon met his eyes. Because she matters. Because I spent 5 years convincing myself that caring about someone was weakness, and I was wrong. She showed me that. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. If she dies and I didn't try, then nothing I've built means anything. The company, the money, none of it matters if I'm still the man who lets people die because he's afraid to take a risk. Kwame studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Stay behind me. Do what I tell you. Try not to get killed. I'll do my best. They moved. Inside the warehouse, Amara sat bound to a chair in harsh light. Park Jung-seok circled her, expensive shoes clicking on concrete. The Black Queen, he said, not so powerful now. She didn't answer. She was working on the ropes, slowly, carefully, testing for give. Your CEO isn't coming. Men like him don't risk themselves for women like you. Park leaned close, breath sour with whiskey. You were useful, a tool. Now that you're inconvenient, he'll cut losses. You don't know him. I know his type. Corporate cowards, all of them. He straightened. But don't worry, I won't kill you. Too valuable. Once I've broken you, once you've given me your syndicate, roots, contacts, I'll let you live, as my employee. She looked up at him, and despite the ropes, she smiled. You think you can break me? I think you've already broken yourself. You let him in. Park shook his head. The great Amara Blackwood, brought down by feelings for a pretty CEO. Your father would be ashamed. The words hit like a blow. Her father, who'd built the syndicate from nothing, taught her power was everything, died because he trusted the wrong person. For years she'd lived by his code. Trust no one, need no one, rule alone. But facing a man who thought he could break her, she realized something. Her father had been wrong. He'd ruled alone and died alone. His empire nearly crumbled the moment he was gone. But she'd built different. She had Kwame, her people, loyal and fierce. And Ji-hoon, a man who saw not a queen to fear, but a woman to stand beside. That's not weakness, she thought. That's strength. My father, she said quietly, would be proud. Park's smile faltered. Then the lights went out. The next minutes were chaos. Gunfire, shouting, bodies crashing against metal. Amara wrenched at her ropes, felt them loosen, pulled her hands free. In muzzle flashes, she saw Kwame moving through darkness like a ghost, taking down Park's men with brutal efficiency. And she saw Ji-hoon, struggling with a guard, taking hits, giving them back, clumsy, untrained, completely outmatched. But here, he'd come for her. She grabbed a metal pipe and swung it into the guard's skull. He crumpled. Ji-hoon looked at her, breathing hard, blood on his face. You're insane, she said. I know. Then Park stepped from the shadows with a gun. Don't move. Everyone froze. Silence fell. Park's hand shook. Rage or fear, she couldn't tell. The gun aimed at Ji-hoon's chest. A clean CEO, Park spat. Saving the Mafia Queen. How romantic. Let her go, Ji-hoon said. This is between us. No, this is between me and everyone who takes what's mine. His finger tightened on the trigger. She took my roots, my reputation. And now she's taken you, the ally I could have had against Ree. So I'll take something from her. Amara's heart stopped. Park, say goodbye, Miss Blackwood. The shot echoed through the warehouse, but Park wasn't the one who fired. He staggered, clutching his shoulder, gun clattering to concrete. Behind him, Agent K stood with her weapon drawn. Commander Ree sends his regards, she said. Then the warehouse flooded with light. Officers, the full force of the Korean government. While paramedics worked and officers secured the scene, Agent K found Amara. You're wondering why? the agent said. Amara studied her. This woman who'd tracked her for weeks, nearly gotten her arrested. The thought occurred. Agent K was quiet. 3 weeks ago, your man Kwame caught me following you. He could have killed me. He didn't. She met Amara's eyes. He said you don't destroy people doing their jobs, only people who choose evil. Amara remembered. Kwame had reported it. A young agent, inexperienced, in over her head. He'd let her go with a warning. So you saved us because we spared you? I saved you because I've been watching for weeks, and I've learned something. Agent K glanced at Ji-hoon being bandaged across the room. You could have run, both of you, resources, contacts. You could have vanished somewhere. Ri would never find you. We didn't. Why? Amara thought about all the years running, hiding, building walls. Because running isn't living, she said. It's just dying slowly. Agent K nodded like that confirmed something. I'm still government, still watching you. I know. But I hope you make it. Both of you. I hope you build something real. She walked away. Commander Ri found them next. He looked at Ji-hoon, then at Amara, and she saw the history in his eyes, the operation she'd foiled in South Africa, the grudge he'd carried for years, but also grudging respect. I know what you are, he said. Both of you. I know about the partnership, the shipments, the gray areas. Ji-hoon started to speak, but Ri held up a hand. I also know you just helped me catch one of the most wanted criminals in Seoul. Silence. I'll be watching, Ri said. One wrong move. We understand, Ji-hoon said. Ri looked at Amara for a long moment, then nodded once and walked away. The next morning, Ji-hoon called Mira into his office. She stood before his desk, face pale, hands clasped. She knew. He could see it. Guilt, fear, desperate hope that somehow he didn't know. You told Ri about the Mokpo shipment, he said. Her breath caught. I was protecting the company, protecting you. You were protecting yourself from her. Silence. I've worked for you 7 years, she whispered. Given everything, and she walks in, a criminal, a smuggler. And suddenly you look at her like, her voice broke, like you've never looked at anyone. Ji-hoon studied the woman who'd been his most trusted employee, his right hand. You're right, he said quietly. I do look at her differently. I won't apologize for that. Tears spilled down Mira's cheeks. But I'll give you a choice. He leaned forward. Resign with full severance and a reference, or stay, and learn to work with Amara. Respect her. Treat her as my partner in every sense. And if I can't, then we part ways. He held her gaze. But Mira, I hope you can. You're brilliant at what you do. I don't want to lose you. I just need to know your loyalty is to the company, not to some idea of what you think I should want. She stood there for a long moment, then straightened her shoulders. I'll stay. I'll try. That's all I ask. She turned to leave, stopped at the door. Does she make you happy? He thought of Amara, her strength, her fire, the way she'd looked at him in that intersection, choosing to believe him when every instinct said don't. Yes, he said. She does. Mira nodded once, then left. It wasn't forgiveness, that would take time, but it was a beginning. 1 month later, Seoul turned golden with autumn. Amara stood at Ji-hoon's office window, watching the city spread below. The Han River caught afternoon sun. Mountains in the distance glowed red and orange. She'd always loved this view. reminded her that cities built on ambition could still be beautiful. The door opened behind her. "Contracts are ready." She turned. Ji-hoon stood in the doorway, folder in hand, quiet smile on his face. He looked different lately, still sharp, still precise, still the strategist who saw 5 moves ahead, but there was ease to him now, warmth in his eyes when he looked at her. He'd started sleeping better, he'd told her. Fewer nightmares. Fewer nights alone in this office, wondering if he'd ever feel anything again. "You gave me that," he'd said. "You reminded me what it's like to be alive." She crossed the room and took the folder. Inside, documents they'd spent weeks crafting. Framework for a new partnership between Blackwood International and Kang Logistics. Not a cover, not a gray arrangement, a real business, legitimate roots, legal contracts, transparent finances. Her idea. After Incheon, she'd realized the life she'd been living, smuggling, underground deals, constant threat, wasn't what she wanted anymore. Maybe never had been. Maybe it was just the only path she could see. But Ji-hoon had shown her another way. Use her skills, her network, her influence, without living in shadows. It won't be easy, he'd warned. Going legitimate means playing by rules you've spent years breaking. "I know," she'd replied, "but I'm tired of being the Black Queen. I want to be something else." "What?" She'd looked at him and smiled. "Yours. I want to be yours." Now, with the contracts in her hand, she felt the weight of that choice, the risk, the rightness. "You're sure?" she asked. He moved closer. His hand came up to rest against her cheek. "I've never been more sure of anything." She leaned into his touch. Outside, the city hummed with 10 million lives, 10 million stories. And here, 2 people had found each other. "One more thing," he said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Her breath caught. "It's not a ring," he said quickly. "Not yet. We can talk about that later. When you're ready." He opened the box. Inside, a key, simple silver, to the house in Pyeongchang-dong, the one with the garden. She knew it. He'd taken her there last week. A traditional hanok, renovated with modern touches, surrounded by maples turning crimson. The kind of place where children could play, he'd said. Where a family could grow. A family. She'd never let herself imagine it. Not with her life, her work, but standing here, holding the key to a house where she might one day hear small feet in the hallways, sit with Ji-hoon on the porch, and watch their children in the garden. It didn't feel impossible anymore. "Partners," she said softly. "Partners," he agreed. She kissed him, slow and deep, a promise and a beginning. When they pulled apart, she looked out the window, sun setting over Seoul, painting the sky rose and gold. A year ago, she'd come to conquer, control, rule. Instead, she'd found something better. She'd found home. That evening, they had dinner with Kwame. Awkward at first, the guardian and the CEO, sharing a table after everything. But by the second bottle of soju, something shifted. Kwame told a story about Amara's first deal in Lagos, and Ji-hoon laughed so hard he nearly choked. She was 19, Kwame said, and walked into a room of arms dealers wearing her aunt's dress. They thought she was serving drinks. "I was there to buy their entire operation," Amara said dryly. "Which I did. Half the asking price." Ji-hoon shook his head, still grinning. "You're terrifying." "Thank you." Kwame raised his glass. "To terrifying women." "To men smart enough to love them," Ji-hoon added. She looked at them. these two who'd fought for her, risked everything, become something like family. She raised her glass. To us, whatever we are. They drank, and in that warmth Amara felt something she hadn't felt since her father died. Safe. Later, she stood alone on Ji-hoon's balcony, looking at stars. The city was quiet. Somewhere out there, Ri was watching. Park was facing trial. The world still held danger, people who'd try to tear down what they were building. But for the first time in 12 years, she wasn't afraid. She thought about her father. The man who'd taught her power was everything. Trust was weakness. Love was liability. You were wrong, Papa, about all of it. Power wasn't everything, not even close. What mattered was finding someone who saw you, the darkness and light, strength and fear, and chose you anyway. What mattered was love. Ji-hoon stepped onto the balcony, arms wrapped around her waist. She leaned back into his warmth. "What are you thinking?" he murmured. She smiled. "That I came to Seoul to ruin your empire." And instead, she turned in his arms, looking up at him. This man who'd started as enemy, become partner, and was now her heart. "Instead," she said softly, "you ended up owning mine." He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. "I think we own each other now," he said. "Is that a problem?" "No." He smiled, and in his eyes she saw everything, the grief and hope, fear and love, the future they were building. "It's exactly what I want." Above them, stars turned in the autumn sky, and Amara Blackwood, the Black Queen, the girl who'd buried her father at 16 and built an empire from ashes, finally let herself believe in happy endings. Because sometimes the most motivational story isn't about conquering the world. It's about finding someone worth sharing it with. She came to Seoul with a plan, power and strategy. Walls so high, she thought no one could climb them. But the city surprised her, and so did he. Kang Ji-hoon wasn't supposed to matter. A tool, a cover, a means to an end. And instead, he became the end itself. Not because he saved her, though he did, walking into fire without hesitation. Not because he loved her, though he does, in that quiet, fierce way. Because he saw her, the queen and the woman, strength and fear. The darkness she'd built her empire on, and the light she'd been afraid to let in. And he chose her anyway. That's the thing about love, real love, the kind that lasts. It doesn't ask you to be less than you are. It asks you to be more. Amara spent 12 years building on power, control. The belief that needing someone meant weakness. But standing on that balcony with Ji-hoon's arms around her, she finally understood. The bravest thing she'd ever done wasn't facing Park in that warehouse. It wasn't outmaneuvering Ri or building routes across continents. The bravest thing was letting someone in. That's the truth this story leaves us with. Power isn't just what you control. It's what you're willing to risk, who you're willing to trust. With the parts of yourself you've kept hidden, it's love. She found hers in the last place she expected. A cold CEO's office, a rain-soaked intersection, a warehouse in Incheon. She found it in a man just as broken as she was. And together they learned to heal. Not perfectly, not easily, but together. So here's to queens who learn to let their walls down. Here's to men brave enough to stand beside them. Here's to love, real, terrifying, inspirational, in all its messy, beautiful glory. And here's to you for staying until the end. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next story. If Amara's journey moved you, if you believe in love that challenges us to be braver than we thought we could be, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. These characters stay with me long after I finish telling their tales, and I hope they'll stay with you too. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's braver than you know.